Hey guys, welcome to Sopi Studio Umbiamas, conectando Aruba com o mundo via vídeo podcasting. Conectar conosco, compartilhar ideias e histórias para nos inspirar e para conan abrir. Sopi Studio é plataforma de podcast na Aruba. Follow-nos no Facebook, subscribe no YouTube ou na plataforma de podcast preferida. Escute o podcast preferido que hora e onde cutar. Sopi Studio, powered by Credits, botou ideia? Credits educava e prepara a abo para ser um empresário exitoso. De business plan, guia personal e préstamo para negócio até com 100,000 florin. Bira para mês donho com Credits. Sopway, passa na Sopway para o sop, salada, wrap ou flatbread e mais fresco. Com 7 localidades rond Aruba, não está cerca de Ibo. Sopway. Swing Masters, organizando events, conferences of weddings, mister de luz, sound, staging, DJ, trussing of flat screen, Swing Masters está claro para ser boa festa um êxito. Swing Masters. E agora, Sopi Studio é plataforma de podcast de Aruba, está apresentar.
Carolina is powered by Lindy Boutique, Proframe, Gelatissimo, Neutrogena, and Purina.
Hi, happy Monday. Welcome to Sincerely Carolina. My name is Carolina. I will be your host for this show. It is April, and that means that we will be talking about a topic very dear to my heart. Yes. It is Autism Awareness Month. So we will talk a little bit about that. And besides that, we will also be talking about different types of learning disabilities, disorders, and just inclusion in general and diversity in general and why it's so important to have that in our community. So we will be talking about that during this month. I hope that you learned something, that you understand the importance hereof, and hopefully create some change in the way that you see other people, because I think that should be the ultimate goal. Before we continue, I want to say thank you to Sopi Studio for making this space available for me to talk about whatever I want to talk about. Thank you to my awesome sponsors, Proframe, Lindy Boutique, and to The Shelf. Thank you. So without further ado, I have two awesome ladies in the house today to talk about this. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Awesome. All right, so before we continue, Kay, can you introduce yourself real quick? Tell us who you are. Some of you may know Kay. She's also a co-host in one of Sopi Studios' podcasts. But Kay, please tell us who you are.
Hi, my name is Kay. I'm an autistic young adult. I'm also an AFA ambassador. So, yeah, that's all about me.
All right, and I'll ask you more questions so that people get to know you a little bit better in a little bit. Jamie, tell us who you are.
Thank you for having me. My name is Jamie Bareño, and I'm mom of Chet Owen, and I'm the co-founder as well as from Speech Warriors of Aruba Foundation, as Chet is the founder, of course, and also a spiritual Chopra well-being coach.
Yes, awesome. Okay, so we have different perspectives today, which I really wanted to have. So we have a mom, somebody who went through the system, right, and figured out different things at different times. So I think that's really awesome. And Kay, you also went through our system in so many different ways. So hopefully you have some really awesome feedback and some do's and don'ts, right? But before we continue, for those of you that don't know yet, I'm the president of Fundación Autism Aruba. That's Aruba's Autism Foundation. So I will also be giving some input into that extent. So I will start just giving some short definitions and explanations. So what is autism, right? Autism is known as autism spectrum disorder. And basically it's a development disorder. And we were talking about this today, Kay, right? Yeah. And some people will say that Is it a disability? Is it not a disability? And okay, I do think that you should discuss that in further. But some disorders can end up becoming disabilities, and for some people they're not. Okay, so it really depends on what you're experiencing as part of that disorder, right? The signs that you're getting, the symptoms, or the behaviors that you're having. They can be disabling for some people and for some not. So I'll let Kate talk a little bit about that if she wants to in a little bit. She's looking at me funny. You don't have to, but if you want to. So I did want to make that very clear. Also, autism is very complex. So we always say when you meet one person with autism, you have met just one person. Everybody's so different. How it presents itself, and each person depends on so many things. It depends on their environments, really. Sometimes somebody would not be exposed to a trigger, and then when they are, something new arises. So it's really important for us to not have like these stereotypes or stigmas even of what it looks like, and just be open to when you meet somebody and understand that they may have a certain number of needs, and some of them will need them all, some of them will need only a couple, and everything in between. So I think it's important for us to know that. But if we think about the more common things that come with autism, so you have different areas. So you have communication. You will have some people who are nonverbal, so they will not be able to talk at all. They may be able to develop their speech at some point. Some will never develop this. Then you'll have like the overly talkative people on the spectrum as well. So this is again something very peculiar. And what you will see is that in some cases they will, almost seem like obsessed with a particular topic. So they'll over talk about the topic. That's also something that comes a lot with autism. So like a specific how do you call it? Yeah, specific interest. And it can be like super random things. So you will see kids who are obsessed with like cars or trucks,
Rocks.
or rocks, exactly. So it really depends, but it's where they like intensely like this. And this is also where you see some strengths. So some people will, further develop that particular interest into becoming something that relates to their career. So that's when you see people that go in like very specific areas of like science, right? That may seem like super odd. Like, why are you researching that particular star? But it could be because it's a very specific interest. So, these things that may seem odd or different can also become their strengths in the future. So, I do want to say, do not dismiss it. Let me see what else. We may have heard the term Asperger's in the past. It used to be used as a form of diagnosis. It no longer is recognized in the diagnostic model, but it would be considered something like high functioning autism. I personally don't necessarily like the words high functioning, because what is high functioning, right? But basically it means that they adapt better to our society. And we will talk a little bit about that, having to adapt to our society, right? But yes, so those are little things that we know. So autism can happen to anyone in the sense that, you don't get it. A child is born with it, and you only start seeing, signs maybe later in age, or you start to realize that those signs that you were dismissing were part of that. It happens in all races, socioeconomic groups, all ethnicities. It happens in both males and females. Right now, the numbers for males are much higher than for females, something about 4-1. There's still a lot of research being done in regards to whether it's a genetic predisposition or if it has to do with the way that we diagnose it. So, those numbers might change, but that's what it looks like right now. So a lot of people may have met more boys with autism than girls, and that makes sense with the numbers. Our numbers in Aruba are pretty similar to the world. So something about like 1 in 160 children who are born, maybe, somewhere on the spectrum. And what else? Oh, yes. So another thing that I also want to address is the division of like people being like, oh, autistic people are like super smart or they're not smart at all. So just like everybody else, they are everywhere and in between. Okay. So studies show that about half the people who are on the spectrum are, average to above average IQ, and then the other half is average to below average. So autism in itself does not necessarily mean or equal to a particular level of cognitive development at all. It's just, it can mean that the way they learn is a little bit different. And I know that Jamie will be talking a little bit about that too. So it's very important for us not to, again, stereotype as to, expecting for them all to be like super smart or not to achieve anything. It's, it's just like anybody else. You have to see what their max potential is and foster that, whatever that may be. So yes, diagnosis can be established at a very young age. We have crucial years, so the earlier the better, but it doesn't mean that you cannot be diagnosed as an adult. Ideally, it should happen somewhere around 2-3 years old. Here in Aruba, the number is a little bit higher because we know that waiting list and the number of professionals is, a little bit low, but this hopefully is changing a little bit more. But if you're an adult and you feel like you may have gone through life undiagnosed, but still you want to know, that can also happen. So don't think that you have to be a child for this to happen. So that's a little bit about it. So I hope that we are a little acquainted with what autism is. And if not, I do encourage you to sign up for one of our lectures that we are having next week for, sorry, I'm kidding, this week. This is a pre-recorded episode. I just gave it away. But yes. So you can sign up and, we'll be talking, but just follow us. We share a lot of information. Get on the internet, right? And if there's anything you want to learn, you can always reach out to Fundación Autism as well. If you would want a lecture, if you would want us to explain something to your group, to your company, we are here to educate you. So without further ado. So Jamie, I just mentioned something, right? The part of learning differently. And this is something that you have experienced yourself. So please tell us about that journey.
Yes. So with Chad, he was recently diagnosed about 1.5 years ago, even though he showed mild symptoms, and it was mostly targeted to the speech apraxia he has. So he has a speech disorder, and 65% of children who has autism tend to have this speech disorder, which is a motor planning disability, and where the words does not connect with the jaw, so the words are very difficult to come out.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was the main focus. And then throughout the years, we noticed that it was mostly on behavior. He did not want to be in groups, and that was some tendencies in the autism spectrum. But however, it was not really full-blown really
clear
present. Yeah. And throughout the years, we noticed, okay, some behavior begins to modify it, and then maybe in the last 3 months, literally, that's when the autism really began to
present itself. Okay.
Yes, and we're trying to enter in Canada for the past 2 years to get some diagnosis, because there's a centrum specialized in apraxia, and I wanted to see if he has autism and if it was the primary issue because he have apraxia, or if it's autism, or if it's any other disability or disorder or whatever you want to label it, which for me is it's okay as long as we know that we can help him. That was most important. And also having the right tools,
right?
But also the right diagnosis, because and then we know how to assist him. And that journey was very intensive, because he was diagnosed here in the island, and it was, he has autism, it's level 2, so he has a lot of moments to go up front, but he can be okay. So from there, we began noticing, okay, he might be changing, but at the end of the day, his happiness is what really counts. His mental health.
Yes.
And if you see him, he is so happy, always smiling, and it's just magical to see.
Yes. So I think that was very interesting, right? And I think that there's a lot of like discussion about like whether children should get like a diagnosis at an early age or not, and people are always afraid of like having these labels, right? And I just want to touch base a little bit on that. So I think that we have given labels a really bad connotation that now people are afraid to have them. Labels in itself only mean that you know how to move forward. So, you know, I was reading something as well that people are like, oh, you shouldn't say disabled, almost like it's a bad word. No, it's not. You know, we as society decided that, you know, it's something to be shameful of, but it's not. You know, it's a reality. You have to accept it. You have to be aware of it in order to provide the assistance necessary, right?
Exactly.
And so what would you say to parents? I mean, you did explain that a little bit, but what would you explain to parents who are afraid, right? When they start those conversations that their child might get a diagnosis, like if you would, you know, be able to kind of help them take away that fear of having that label, like what would you say?
Of course. So coming back to the first question, the system in Aruba still needs a lot of education. And from there, I understand their fear because I was also in their shoes. And that's when I said, I'm not leaving the island. I'm changing the perspective of this. So it was like, yeah, your child has a rare speech disorder. We can help him until here. This is how far we can go. And that's it. I'm also a working parent. I used to have a 8 to 5 job. So I totally understand how hard it is to be away from him, and also hearing these words that in Aruba, there's not a lot of help. So what I did is I took measures in my own hands. And I said, no, he may have a speech disorder, but I'm going to really, really go and dig deeper. And once I noticed how to help him, the fear began to diminish.
Nice.
Yes. And also trusting the process of everything. But it came down to the point that I was educating the system. And that's a very powerful tool because it's based on research. It's not about Jamie saying. It's based on research. And I'll go with my books like I have here. And I will go with my books and my papers. And I will even, out of my own pocket, pay for conferences for the educators to attend.
Wow.
Yes, because it's not only him we're helping society, right? And from here, that's when I began to notice it was mentally draining, noticing that your child is different. Will he be accepted? He was kicked out of 2 different schools. And I took it very personal, to be honest. But then at the end, it was not where he was supposed to be. And where he went for the past 2 years is where they accepted him, but also assisted him to his needs.
Exactly.
And from there, the perspective changed because now you know, oh, okay, we're going to help him. If we keep on hiding and seeing it as a taboo, we're not helping our child. And academics is important. And me, as I have a master's degree and I have all these fancy degrees, so for me it was also difficult. Oh, my child, will he be okay? Is this important? But that's how society tells you that you have to do, right? You have to go to school, you have to get married, you have to have children, you have to go have a corporate job to be secured and all of these things. But at the end, I'm noticing why will I put my child through suffering? And I see as an abuse, if I may say, because they're not getting the assistance that they need.
Yes.
And it's difficult for you to be here and seeing your child struggle because you want him to fit in. And it doesn't go like that.
No.
So once you see, do they pay the bills for you? Do they make you happy? Do they bring happiness to your child? Who puts him to bed? You know, and then you begin asking these questions and it begins to, hey, I have to step into this and change the perspective.
Exactly.
And then easy by easy, I began to post a little bit more, but I was so afraid. I was afraid because there was, I mean, you're being told you need to leave the island. I have my life here. So I'm like, I'm not leaving no island. I'm staying here. I'm going nowhere. I mean, I love to travel, but there's no place like Aruba. No, thank you. I've been to 28 countries in my life, and I'm like, no way. Here you have the luxury of peace and tranquility, but we're a small island. So if I can go back and be the change, why not? And I have a message for these parents. Don't be afraid. We're here. We're here. We can help you. And I mean, my door is always open. You can ask anything that you want. I'm very transparent. And as long as you don't give up on your child, don't go that route. If one thing you can come out of this is that there's hope, and the last thing that you can lose is that. So there is a solution for every challenge that we experience in life.
Yes, for sure. And that's the thing, right? I mean, I love how you said it. It's being aware of your surroundings. I think that a lot of people have the tendency to look at what's missing, but instead of channeling into action, it's more like anger, right? And of
Why
course
me?
there's stage, yes, why me? And there's stages like, why is the system not fixed? Like, why am I not being provided this and that? And of course, financially it has implications, of course, like on the, stress levels. But like you said, there's a lot of other people out there who are willing to, guide you, help you, hold your hand through the process, show you new doors, new ways. But you have to be willing to knock on doors. You have to be willing to be told no, and then try again, and not just like be angry once you're told no once. And things take time. Something like changing a perspective in a community, and if something isn't there and you have to create it, that takes time, and you have to be okay with that.
And not only accepting the no, asking the why.
Yes.
And there's exceptions for everything. I always say there's exceptions for everything. There's exception. That's why it's called an exception.
Yes.
So I don't accept no easily, and that's why we're here as well, to change the perspective. And I'm a very motivated woman, and I'm the mama bear. I'm the mama bear. I have one child, but all these children who come after him, they're also my children. Because yes, as long as I'm alive, I will fight for them. And if I can change the life of one family, I've done enough. Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm really happy, and happy that you also choose to share your journey, because I know that not everybody feels comfortable with that, and I'm not saying that that's not fine, but I know that it also takes courage to choose to do so. So I applaud that.
Thank you.
And I also tell people, even if somebody doesn't necessarily share something in public, doesn't mean that you can't go to them. So word of mouth, like, talk about it. Somebody knows somebody. So sometimes you'll be in like these super random conversations, and they'll be like, oh, I know somebody, I can get you in touch with them. So just talking about it. Sometimes we're afraid to talk about things because we're like, oh, maybe they won't understand. Maybe they won't. Fine. But maybe they'll know somebody who does. Right? So it's just being open to that. Okay, and I'm going to look at you because you had a very different experience, right? I mean, you did not have that label or diagnosis, whatever you want to, call it today, at a very young age, which once you did, gave you all the moments, right? So can you tell us about what that looks like? And I know that you wish you would have known earlier, because then everything would have made more sense, and how, things were perceived. But can you talk a little bit about that other side of having a diagnosis at a later age, and how that affected you as well, or impacted you differently?
Okay.
Kay's looking at her nose like, Carolina.
This was not on here. Well, as you said, I was diagnosed when I was 15, so that was pretty late. And I had a talk with my therapist, like, I think yesterday, like my really old therapist that I had the first time. And I asked her questions because my memory is a little foggy of that period, because it was like hard to accept, and I always had like questions rise in my head, like, why didn't I know earlier? Like, what could I have done, or who could I have been? It was hard also for my family, I think, But for my school, they were really accepting and they were really compassionate, and I think that's when everything started changing, when they accepted me and they looked at like how I was and helped me through that. And I also think that social media and other people out there, it's what I wrote here, is that even if school was accepting and compassionate, I still felt like I didn't fit in because I didn't have anybody to relate to. So I reached out to like social media and trusted sites and the people that I followed, and that's where I found like more people to relate to. And now that I'm more out there and I can know more people on the spectrum, more people my age on the spectrum, and I'm always like so happy when I meet adults, especially women who are on the spectrum. Like it always gets me excited because I'm like, oh, you're like me. So yeah, that's the kind of like the process. But it was hard before that I didn't know, like because you could say that I lived my life basically not only in hiding but masking it all, and it's really tiring and exhausting, and then you feel like nobody understands you and it's constantly this empty feeling that you have, and
Also not knowing why, right?
not knowing why, like not knowing myself, like why am I like this, why doesn't my sibling like this, or why is nobody else having these problems that I'm having. So it was hard, but once I like saw people who are like me, it kind of brought me a sense of relief.
Exactly. And I think that is very nice how you said it, right? A sense of relief. Because I think, like UK, there might be a lot of people who, feel a certain way or experience something a certain way, and then they try to express it to, somebody else. And then the other person's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? And if they don't know where it's coming from, they'll continue in life thinking that something is either wrong with them, or, why is nobody also experiencing this? But once you are able to process it better and then also work on it, if it's something that that is bothering you, of course. So yeah, like you said, your school was able to assist you better, right? They were able to provide you with the tools that you needed in your everyday functioning. And I think that's also important. I mean, you would be surprised how people's attitudes just change the moment they know. And then they're like, oh, okay, what can we do about it? How can we make it better? So yeah.
I was super grateful because I'm like, oh my God, they're going to kick me out. I'm going to go to M school or something. But I wasn't. They were like, I don't know how to explain. I think they're probably like Gen Z like teachers or something, but they worked really well. And how they just changed the way that they acted and changed the way they like treated me. So, for example, I was known with autism, and then I have a disability, and then I can get like 30 minutes extra on doing a test. I could be alone in a room with 2 teachers that are surveillant when I'm doing my test. I could take breaks. I remember this one time the teachers, like, they knew that I was really sensitive to the bell sound, and it like goes off 3 times every 45 minutes. So I had headphones, and even one time they put money together to get me a new headphone because I can't afford it. So they were really, really nice, and they talked to me, and they were the support that I needed at the time.
Yes, and that's what we would want more of. We want to see that more, and that means talking about things that may make people feel uncomfortable, maybe for a little bit, but the added value that comes after is so much better than the little discomfort it might cause at the beginning. And that's, people are always afraid of that, like, first discomfort. But like you said, Jamie, like it's scary at first, but then and then you can work with it, and you can
very
move
scary.
forward, right? And then you empower yourself, you empower others, and you learn, and you see the added value. You see how your child, feels better, communicates better. So yes, definitely, I think that is very important. So Jamie, you learned a lot of things, right, in your process. So you have this foundation that you started. Can you tell us a little bit of why you felt like this was necessary, what your goal is with that, and then also tell us about Jet's new device that's coming soon?
Of course. So through all of this process, I was not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I was becoming very desperate. I entered a very depressive state, and I couldn't handle everything what's coming in. I also asked, why me? I did yoga. I ate well. I was a vegan. I do a lot of charity work, and the why, the famous why. And then I was like, hey, this is my calling, part of my calling. And I began to accept it. Once I accepted, I noticed that Jet Owen also began to accept it.
Nice.
Yes. And that was very powerful. Very, very powerful to see his perspective of me being calmer and entering more in the world that I am in now, in spirituality, and began to see, okay, how I'm going to implement these teachings and accept him as he is, and getting the tools and help he needs. And of course, by educating. So I began to read all these books, and at the end, it came down to I had all of these knowledge, but I didn't know how to spread the awareness. And I decided
how to make it something for like everyone else going
exactly.
through it.
And the speech pathologist needs to be paid by parents. So, and as we know, it's very expensive. And Jet Owen had to go 5 times a week.
Wow.
Yes. So for now 6 years, so you can go. It's a down payment of a house. And I said, OMG, how parents can afford this? They don't normally. So I said, I cannot be sitting here crossing my arms. Of course, let's put together, and I manifested this on the 31st of December 2019, where I was going. Normally I go at the end of the year to Blackstone Beach, and I give gratitude to Pachamama, that's the earth, but also the ocean. And it just popped up a foundation. We need to help. I was complaining with a girlfriend. I need to pay all this money. I need to save. We got our bonus. I used to work at the bank, and I'm like, oh, now this bonus has to go to therapy. Well, everybody's taking vacations. This money has to go for there. So I said, but wait. Let's maybe change this, and let's make a foundation. And COVID hit 3 months after, and 2020 went. I did not make it happen. And then 2021, I said, no, this is the year that we cannot let this year pass without this foundation. And then it was launched on the 16th of November 2021. We launched it with the intention of being able to pay for children to get therapy. Speech in particular. That's why it's called Speech Warriors of Aruba Foundation. And with the intention as well to create awareness, and working with other foundations, the Autism Foundation, going into schools, setting the informative platforms, and really making this a big, and also implementing it into the society.
Exactly.
And from there, we just started. So we have a few months, and also we need volunteers. So if
this is a good place to tell people.
Yes. So you can reach me at Jamie Bareño, all platforms, Instagram, Facebook. And we are going to go very large this upcoming year. We're recruiting, but I can't do this alone, of course.
No, of course not.
And from there, I will really have this vision of making it official in the sense of getting big donations. And every child that we add on to the program needs about 5,000 florins per year. So that's the average, more or less. And having funds also. We have an Aruba bank account. So
Nice.
I will give you the info to, if you can place
Yes,
that
we can
number.
put it in the comments for sure.
Yes. And so we are official. And yeah, it's just being there for parents, you know, creating the awareness that you're not alone. We have a whole team. And also bringing different things to help these children. For example, the device that we're bringing is a device that's going to assist him. It's an iPad, but with specific apps that will help him for his speech. So there's different types of apps that you have depending on the age. And it's an augmentative device that will assist him. So he can think and he can talk. However, certain words does not come out. And then this device will help him
Communicate better. Nice.
And the device is normally specifically for iPad. And what you do is that you do not add any other apps into it, just for it not to get confused. It's specifically for his assistance in helping him talk. So he'll be one of the first on the island. I haven't seen no children with it. And the idea is to also bring it into school. It's just like a cochlear implant, so you cannot be taking it away from him. I don't know how the school's going to react after this, but again, it's all based on education.
Exactly.
So,
and also, I think a big part of, because I've been following you and your journey for a while now, and also putting in the input of what to do at home, right? Because you mentioned like going to therapy, and yes, in Judd Owen's case, he needed to go 5 times a week, for an hour, but that doesn't mean that that's the only place where work happens, right? Work happens all day, every day at home. Like any chance that you get, you have to put in that work. And that's where a lot of people, also get frustrated, because they expect that they, take their child to a place, and then, that they come back and something's fixed, or something is and no, it's continuous effort for a desired outcome. How would you tell parents, like encourage them to do the work, right? Because, and I hear this from professionals too a lot, because I do get in touch with a lot of professionals, and they tell me, Carolina, we sometimes also get sad and a little upset, because we are doing the work, with what we have. A lot of professionals even provide like payment plans, or they provide like cheaper rates. Like they are doing the best they can with what they have, even keeping in mind that they are overworked because there aren't enough of them. And then they say, and then we get like bashed on social media on top of it, because parents are not doing the work. And then it's like their fault, right? So what would you tell parents who, to change that perspective?
Okay, there's a few things here. Most of the parents are working parents. So they have responsibilities from 8 to 5. By the time they have to come home, they have to cook, they have to clean, they have to do all of these. So seeing myself, I used to work a corporate job. Now I don't anymore. How I did it was really the time that we're together, making the maximum of it. So in the mornings, setting routines that will help him ease the stress levels, doing anything not rushed, but more strategically planned, waking up early, preparing all the items the day before, but also planning how you're going to assist your child through the week. So like on Sunday, prepare what is the plan of this week. And remember, not everything is down to money. It comes back to love. When you do something with love, it goes easier. And it can be a simple fact, going in nature, like going to the beach, seeing a sunset, but also helping him, his mental capacities of teaching him why visiting nature is important, because the nature is an extended part of the body. And this is where we use the 5 senses. When you begin implementing these, it's holistic approaches that does not require any funds. And you will see that the stress and anxiety, because normally with these children and adults, the anxiety is very high. And introducing these elements begins to calm the senses. Another aspect is reading, taking the time to read. And there's books in all different languages. So if from the Spanish perspective, an English perspective, whatever fits your needs, there's a book that you can read upon. And also getting support from Facebook groups or supporting systems will really, really help. And not being afraid to ask, how can I help my child? And not to label and not to judge, but people are afraid to do the work because it requires a lot of their input. And I see that so much that they don't want to deal with it. They have to work, and then I have to go deal with this child, and it only gets worse if you don't assist them. So doing these small steps will begin to change your perspective, and it all comes back to mindset. Mindset is the most powerful tool that you can give. And once you stop the resistance, and the child will also begin to...
Yes, reciprocate that energy, right?
It's an exchange of energy, and both will begin to work. Now, with this device, this iPad, and by the way, this is Autism Awareness Month. There's 50% off on the lamps. It's called lamps on Apple. It's only with an Apple device. So it can be downloaded. It helps them ease the stress because it helps them communicate. So you have to find ways how to help him. And since one size does not fit all. And from here, by being more proactive, you begin to notice the big shifts of the changes and being there for your child. And I go back to the mental health. Academics are important, but your mental health is the most important thing. Nobody can function if they're extremely under stress.
Exactly.
So don't be afraid of seeking other ways to help him or her.
And that's right. I think you said very very important and particular things. It's the state where parents children, especially when they're like really smart, they're sponges. So if you're in constant high stress and high anxiety mode, that's what they'll know.
Yes.
And that's where they'll be. And we know this from research and, from personal experience, that if you are in these heightened states, you are not going to be able to retain information clearly and genuinely learn and understand. So you need to find a way to reduce these so that anything that you are putting in is genuinely, reaching max capacity. And I know it's hard sometimes to find that balance, but it's choosing to do what is required to find that balance.
Yes. Taking the first step. Taking the first step to be of service to your baby, because at the end of it, he or she's always going to be your baby.
Yes.
And don't be afraid, when there's judgment, trying to find why there's judgment. Trying to change that perspective. Until now, I must say, he's 7 and mostly he was accepted. It was at these 2 schools not only, but it's okay. It was understandable, but mostly until now, I feel that if you explain, okay. So
if you help the people,
preparing the child as well, telling him about the pictograms. We're going to go to the park, and the park there's lights, and doing that work, everything will fall into place. We went to Canada, and it was the first time. The third time he went on an airplane, but it was 4 years after. I was freaking out. He was more saying hi to everybody and wants to go in the cockpit. I'm like, no. And then the pilot was like, yeah. I'm like, no. So, he was, but what happened was that I prepared him with 3 books. I took the airplane book, I took the hospital book, and I also took a book from Canada explaining him, okay, we're going to go to Canada, we're going to go to doctors. He's super afraid of doctors.
Okay.
And we're going to go in an airplane. So he's mentally prepared. There's a shift coming up. We're going to go in an airplane. There's going to be snow. He saw snow. And everything went more calm. I was more nervous. And he is like, I'm good. I'm chilling.
No care in the world.
Yeah, like no care in the world.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. You see, it's better to be prepared, like you said, and then have it go well.
Yes.
And then not be prepared, and then being like surprised by all of these.
And mention something about obsessive behavior. He also has that. So I was afraid he's going to be obsessed of, for example, the airplanes or the snow. But in this case, no, it was mostly he is obsessive on things that really he loves. Like, don't we all of us be like, we just don't say it. Maybe we're obsessed with something and we're not so open about it.
Exactly.
He's obsessed with ice cream. Who is not obsessed with ice cream? We all like ice cream, So it's about just accepting the process, accepting.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Jamie. I think that was very good input. It's okay. You have a bunch of notes there, and I love how you have a bunch of notes there. So tell me, what is something that we haven't talked about that you feel like we should really talk about while we're here?
They all disappeared. I don't know. You didn't ask those questions. So.
Oh, well, then tell me something that I might not have asked, but you think is really important.
I don't know. I don't work well with creating my own conversation.
Okay, let me just pick
No.
something random.
I'm going to put it far away from you. I don't know. I guess we could talk about the thing you said about disorder and disability.
Okay. So how do you feel about that? Because there's a lot of argument, right? For some people, it's like, oh, but it's not a disability. Oh, but yes, it is. So can you talk about that for your own experience and how you see it and perceive it as a person who is directly impacted by this?
Yes. So I have autism, and maybe I don't think exactly like other autistic people, and that's okay. But maybe I do. So before I start, I want to say like what a disorder is and what a disability is. A disorder is a disturbance of normal functioning in the mind and body, and that is a medical term. A disability is a disadvantage or handicap, especially one imposed by the law. So this is a legal term. And for me, I think that autism is a disorder, but it is also a disability because it's lifelong and it affects how you interact and communicate. And having both of these words can help you, like maybe at the doctor, how they help you better. But it can also help you in school. Like if I didn't say I have a disability, I couldn't get the help that I needed, like for example, the 30 minutes on my tests. So it is helpful, but I think people don't like the word because of how others see it and how others treat them because of this word. But I think we just have to like normalize it, I guess, and not see it as something bad. It's just something that you need help with, and it's not bad. I don't know how to say it in another word.
And we talked about this, right? And I love how you distinguish something being a medical term, something being a legal term. So legal terms usually exist to protect a group, right? So in this case, this legal term exists to protect a group. And what it means is that you acknowledge that some form of assistance is necessary, right? And also, I think that we are very much used to things like physical disability. So we have for a very long time attached the word disability to physical disability. So when we think about people in like wheelchairs, for example, for whatever reason that they may be on one, when we think about people who are hearing impaired or who are blind, so because we have created this perspective, anytime that, you know, a disability is presented that is not visible, it glitches in our brain. So we have to re-educate ourselves and the community on how disabilities may be different. And like you said, so if your brain is processing things differently, but the system we have created was created to serve, you know, neurotypical people, that means that you will be at a disadvantage, period, because it was not designed with your brain's working in mind. And that is not necessarily a bad thing. It means that if that system is to remain that way, you will require assistance. And at some point, hopefully and ideally, that system would need to be adjusted so that you are no longer at a disadvantage, but everybody is on the same level of playing field. So that's, I also think that that's something that we have to think about, that because something is a disability now doesn't mean that it has to be a disability forever. If anything, it signals a need to create some change or adaptation to something that already exists. So thank you for bringing it up that way, right? Of it being a legal term and not necessarily something set in stone. It's something that we can and should be doing something about, right? And that's why visibility is so important. So I also think, again, it's really nice to see people like you, Jamie, you know, as a mom, advocating for your child, but then you also have, you know, somebody like Kay, you're advocating for yourself and just making people more aware, asking why. Sometimes I get like these very random messages from Kay. Okay, at all kinds of time of the day. Sometimes I read them at that moment, and then
Don't
sometimes
call me out.
and then sometimes I'm like, Kim, I need to come back to this, you know. Or I always tell her like, which part, like, what do you want me to explain, like which part, everything. And then she tells me everything, so I go like, but and I do not have the answer for everything. Okay, sometimes I go and I'm like, we're gonna go on the internet together and figure this out. But the reality is that we should be questioning, right? So we were talking about why people still ask random questions. And Jimmy, I don't know if you have perceived this too, where people will ask what I call ignorant questions that might be, you know, considered microaggressions, dehumanizing to people, offensive to people. And I know that they can be very frustrating. I do have to say that I have adapted in the last couple of years. I have worked on my patience and gentleness and how I respond to these type of question or comments. But I have also been in situations where I'm in a place, you know, with Kay or with Byron even, and something is said and I can immediately feel and see how it affects them and how, you know, it's almost like in that particular moment, you can immediately feel how somebody believes that they are less than, right? Yeah. And it's meeting that person there. I know it's hard. It's hard even for me, you know, not necessarily being a parent, but just as an advocate. And, you know, having people that I really care about in my life who are affected by this. And I'm going to ask you both this, what would you tell people who, you know, are still on the learning curve, either by choice or not, because everybody's on the learning curve, whether you want to be on it or not. Kudos to you if you are by choice. But what would you tell them, you know, when these thoughts come to mind? And I have also some tips and I'll go over them, but how? What do you want them to do differently or think about or consider?
You mentioned that not all disabilities are visual. And in this case, Jet Owen looks normal. It's
normal, right? Whatever that means. We don't like that word.
Yeah. But in society terms,
yes.
He looks normal. And I say we all have something. We just don't know. Some of us don't know. And when he begins to speak, the children begin to ask, what language does he speak? And that's when I began educating. Normally, I go to the parents and I do inform them if there's a play date or we go to a park or a party or anything. I do talk to the parents for the parents to talk to the children beforehand. So that's a pre-education.
Nice.
And then sometimes the kids will literally come to me and tell them, oh, but he again, though the normal comes up. He looks normal. Is he normal? And I'm like, yes, papi or mommy or whatever, or whatever the name is. It's like, yeah, he's just like you. Just he needs some assistance and helping him. Maybe you can help him, or maybe you can show with your hands, and he understands every single thing. And that's when they also begin to calm down. Now, there's certain parents that they don't care. They don't care. And for example, he can be sometimes a little bit aggressive. We had a situation at the park that he wanted to play tick. So he went to the child and he was being a little bit hard. And the parents came and almost screamed at me, your child is hitting. And I'm like, oh, let's calm down first. Because, we're near our children. And he has a disability that he cannot talk very well. However, I will talk with him to be gentle. But this passive aggressiveness will show the type of energy is around our child. And also, this is when inclusion comes in. And I told also him that your child will be around different kinds of people. And it's up to you as well to help your child blend in around our children. So it's not only my child, it's your child too.
Exactly.
So I was some passive aggressiveness there as well. But I mean, yeah, I cannot be here being all calm and no. It's not me. I'm a spiritual teacher, but let me tell you, Caroline and Kay, I don't accept nothing from nobody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take no shit. I get it.
I take no shit. No. I will never, ever lose respect, but I will, I always ask permission. May I educate you? May I advise you? And
good.
Yeah, right?
Educate you.
Yeah, because they can tell you, I didn't ask for your advice or whatever. And sometimes they get yes, and sometimes they get no. And I told them, well, this is the problem. You're part of the problem. If they say no, for example. Yes. But normally it's a yes. And again, we don't have that with him. It all comes back to education and the pre-planning. Telling people in advance, this is the situation. Please, let's work together. If you need visuals, please do let me know. So not being afraid to talk. And then I see that normally it goes very well. This was just a case that it was at a park. They were not my friends. They were just children. And now I know, okay, when this situation comes up, I will go to the parents and tell them.
Like right away, yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell them, and now he has the
bracelet.
The bracelet.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So he's wearing it for the last 2 days. So I'm gonna bring him to the park, and then they can see it. Like just identifying. It also helps. And when we went to the airplane, so traveling, we had a doctor's letter in case there's a tantrum.
Something happened.
Also, I did inform. Again, it goes back to education, informing at the airline. Hey, my child has speech apraxia. He has autism. This is the situations that is occurring at the moment. Please, if something happens, this is why. And it went very well again. Something I forgot to mention was that there's normally when you have autism, it can be that you have comorbids. Yes. So that's something that really happened with him as well, that he has also a language disorder. It's that he needs to learn how to learn. And so that's like a third extra that came along. However, his brain needs to process the information, taking the time to when he sees something and taking the time to acknowledge and let it integrate. So this is something that happens more at autism.
Yep.
Children, you have more than one. So for
Yep.
the parents not to be, oh, wow, there's another. It's just normal.
Yep.
This have dyslexia can come up, you
Yep.
know, so many
ADHD,
things.
yes.
ADHD, ADD.
Mhm.
So be open for that possibility, and also maybe go on a hunt. That's what I did. We did. My husband and I, we went on a hunt to see what else there was out there that we did not see. And his teacher noticed that he has some language disorder, but she was not 100% sure, and that's the reason why we went to Canada, just to get a second opinion
On
and
everything.
somebody who is specialized in apraxia. And it happens to be that apraxia is not the main factor anymore. Is the autism that creates the language disorder, and also the apraxia, but the apraxia is breaking through, which is
Yes.
very, very good, because it's a very rare disorder. And once we know how to help him with his language disorder, he will begin to break all of these barriers and go along. And don't be afraid of testings. That was something that I wanted to say. His IQ is low, whatever, because
Yeah.
I was not accepted in colegio because these tests, I get so nervous. But not to brag, but I have all these degrees, and this test will not define me.
No.
So, you know, don't be afraid, but always know that you know your child more than anybody else knows your child.
Exactly.
So these tests are at the moment.
Yep.
And things can change.
Things can change, and it also, if anything, you know, and I always tell parents this when we do like assessments, right, for children. I'm sure it can be scary, but at the same time, use the results as a motivator to assist where assistance is needed.
Yes.
Right? So, you know, if it shows that there is some deficiency in whatever area, work on it, you know?
And
this is what you
food.
can do.
And by food. Food is the primary healer. We helped him with food. A lot of different kinds of food. There's a lot of superfoods. I'm looking into now mushrooms. I don't know if this is legal, by the way, but
Oh my gosh, Jamie.
but yeah, you have to be open. But I'm not sure.
Jamie's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I should be expressing this right now, but we're just reading now.
Yes. I'm open. Don't worry, I did not bring nothing to Aruba. I'm just like, yeah. I mean, look how CBD was so taboo. And CBD, we have CBD now in Aruba, but I'm looking at options. And remember that these mushrooms are not all of them are hallucinogenic. Some of them
I know.
they're, you know, from medicinal. So I'm looking at options. Yeah, there's proof, there's scientific proof that it does help, and it also helps with trauma. So I'm also a trauma-informed teacher. And I'm now looking into that, seeing what are the options, and yeah, so we'll
Take
see.
your time, exactly. And that's the thing, that you have, like, your curiosity has gone to that point, right? And we're laughing here, but I think it's so interesting because you have it in you to even be reading about these things, you know, and it, like you said, it may be beneficial, or you may just decide like, okay, maybe this is not for us or whatever. But the point is that you are even willing to take the time, read, learn, and educate yourself about it. And that's also something else. Like, you know, we often shame parents, for it's kind of ironic in my opinion, because you will have parents who generally take their time, and then they get shamed for doing that. And I see this a lot in our culture in particular, like parents who are very into, you know, health foods, for example, with their children, who are relatively strict with what their children are allowed to eat and not allowed to eat, you know, whether their children do meditation and all this stuff. And then people will almost like try to shame them for choosing this route. And I'm just thinking like, why are we shaming them? They took in, all this time to read about benefits and advantages versus like things that are bad for them, made, decisions based on that, knowing that this is not, the popular route, and knowing that this might create inconveniences when going out, when going to parties, etc. But you are doing it generally for the benefit of the child. So I do think that I also want to talk a little about, I just want to tell you all that, when you hear parents saying these things, think about, how much time and effort they put in their child's development and well-being, that they even discovered that changing their child's diet could be beneficial or not. So please do not shame parents for doing this,
I haven't experienced that though.
That's good.
Yeah, I have.
I'm happy.
I think nanotin durf.
It could be that. I think it's that. I think it's that.
Or she's in a good circle, yeah.
Yes. I was gonna say maybe, and I hear this too sometimes with people where like I have never been told that, but then I hear true people that they think that something I said is kind of odd.
Yes.
So it's fine.
Yeah,
But
I'm also
it's
open.
fine.
I tell them like you may disagree, and I
Yeah.
respect. I mean, just I want to know why. Again, it goes back to the why.
Why? Yes.
Why do you disagree? I'm not gonna fight you because we can disagree. We can
Agree to disagree, yeah.
I just want to know why, and it all goes back to religion, and that can be a whole Pandora box. And I respect that. And I said, look, this is what works for me. I'm sharing my journey. It's just for you to open your curiosity, open your Pandora, and see what is beneficial for your child at the
In
end
your
of the
situation,
day.
exactly.
Yes. And that's what really helped me. And I've tried a lot of things, a lot. And I also noticed that with time, it was more, he accepted it more. He just now went in his room with no pictograms nor nothing. His room is there since he was born. So 70 years later, now we finally have like the bed for ourselves. Like you have that privacy and just being as a couple. But we're not complaining. We accepted that he's with us, that we are his comfort zone. But it came to a moment that he needs also to find his room. He needs to find his space and his superpowers and his games and all of these things. And we came from Canada on Sunday, and that Sunday we put him in his bed, and it
was
went
fine.
great. Yeah. So now that he's 7, he's also now noticing, okay, there's changes, and I tell him, okay, mi amor, some changes is going to happen. You might fight it, but try to tell me how I can assist you. I don't know if he understands, but he just laughs and looks at me, and until now it's going well. But don't be afraid of the change that comes with everything, and just give it time. We tried many times to put him in his room.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's just trial and error, and waiting for the perfect moment to... Again, no, there's no perfect moment. Now that I'm thinking.
No.
But just trial and error until one day it will click. And with time, he also begin to notice that it's okay. Now he doesn't want to leave the room. So
You see, and that's the thing, that things take time and effort. And like you said, I also think that, it's where it's coming from. It's coming from a place of love, you know, and a positive sense of duty. Not out of like a frustration.
No.
And children feel that. People in general feel that, but especially children, because they really are in that spongy state. So they will feel a shift in your energy as well, definitely.
And I was there. I was there. So I know what it is. I ran away with all the problems. I'm like, I'm not dealing with this. I'm running away. I'm not dealing with special needs children. No. I did went that route. But then cost from who, So it was him. So I was like, no, I need to step up my game and take the responsibility.
For sure.
Yes. So it's okay. It's a process, and you have to trust that process. Be gentle with yourself as well. And you will make mistakes along the way.
And that's okay too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. What is something that you would want to tell people when, I know that it takes patience, and I always tell you this as well, But what would you tell people who, are still learning either by choice or because it's just in their face? What is a tip for them to become better at this learning and accepting process?
You didn't prepare me for this question, so I didn't think about it. What would I tell people?
Like, how does it make you feel when people are like genuinely interested in learning something and genuinely, versus when somebody is just, taking stereotypes and just going with them? No, okay. You just want to tell them no. Okay.
But also sometimes when people just go along with stereotypes, like I wrote a little bit about this specific thing, but it had to do with another stereotype.
Okay.
It's not really like autism related, but what I wrote is that when somebody finds out that a stereotype is bad or harmful to somebody else, like, don't you like think for yourself that do you want to be better? Like,
yeah.
I want to read it. I was a little frustrated when I wrote it, so sorry.
But go ahead.
I said, how hard is it to correct yourself? Like when you find out something is bad or harmful to another, don't you just feel the need to be better and to be kinder, to correct yourself? Like, what is so hard? Am I just weird? It doesn't have to be close to your heart or happening to you for it to be valid. And it doesn't cost you anything. Sometimes people amaze me and sometimes people suck.
That's really nice. And I think that you are, yes, thank you. You are very correct on that. All right. So some quick tips before we leave, because we have to close off and we have been talking for a while. And these are really nice conversations. Maybe we will come back together at the end of April to like kind of close this off. But, as this month starts and there will be a lot going on these topics, especially on autism, but just inclusion in general. Have conversations about it, with your children, with people around you. Have conversations about disabilities. Have conversations about different disorders and conditions. Be genuine when you're having these conversations. It's okay for you to make mistakes. Allow yourself to be educated by those who know better in that particular topic. Don't feel offended. And like Kay said, just work on becoming better. Normalize inclusion, make it a part of you and a part of like the area that you are in. Be more aware of the activities and things you participate in. Question it, even if it doesn't directly or indirectly benefit you. Question why there isn't any inclusion involved. Applaud it where it is involved so that people also feel good for being part of that. Allow others to be curious about it. So don't tell children to shh when they are curious about these things. Let them ask questions. Try to answer these questions. If you don't have the answers, learn with them. It's okay. I see your hands up. What else did you want to say?
I like it when people are curious and when people ask me questions.
Yeah? Okay.
But the only thing I would say, like, maybe just don't ask questions that you wouldn't ask, like,
anybody else,
anybody
right?
else,
Okay.
right?
Yes. So asking about like people having children and stuff like that, those are very pervasive and like personal questions. You shouldn't be asking anyone that.
But I do like talking about autism, and when I can explain somebody else. Of course, I can't explain about the whole thing or for everybody because I'm only just one person with autism.
But you can explain yours.
I can explain my part. So yeah.
Good. All right. So I have kindness cards. Kay, yours says you are enough. And I think it's really cute. Because you are, and we were talking about this last night and this morning, but you are enough no matter, how people or society may make us feel sometimes, make others feel, just know that. And Jamie, it says I like your style, but I absolutely love it. It says like your style, but I love it. I love being social media buddies with you and just having conversations and just being able to discuss and brainstorm things. So thank you for allowing me that space in your life as well and your journey.
Thank you for having me.
And we will continue these conversations. So again, be pending for activities around you, register for things, learn, read, listen.
Message us.
Yes. And thank you so much again to my awesome sponsors. Lindy Boutique, check out their weekly specials. They're always amazing, and you will be able to find cute fits for all kinds of activities that you may have. The shelf has some really cute stuff for Easter that's coming up, spring stuff, Mother's Day stuff, and Proframe, for your windows, doors, and everything for your house that you think you may need. You can go to them. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sopi Mix Studio. Be pending for Wednesday. Learn one Wednesday. I will have some questions that I will brainstorm with Kay.
Yay.
All right. Thank you so much. I will see y'all next week. Bye.
Bye. Namaste.
Sincerely, Carolina is powered by Lindy Boutique, Proframe, Gelatissimo, Neutrogena, and Bareño.